Hello, it is Soul with some more Shadowlands coverage. Welcome. Today I want to get into Soulbinds, which are pictured like right over here. It's one of the big pieces of the Covenant system that includes the fancy cosmetics and the awesome Covenant abilities. And at the moment, players, they're torn over how their choice of Covenant might ultimately be the wrong one. And maybe it's because over time Covenant abilities are nerfed or rebalanced. Maybe it's because at one point you were a tank and then all of a sudden, okay, now you need to heal. And then the Covenant ability that you have, it just plain sucks for it, and that feels really bad. Soulbinds are the feature of agency within each Covenant, and they offer three to develop. You swap between them and you customize. So I'm going to go over how Soulbinds can make our Covenant abilities maybe a little bit more useful than we had at first believed. And then I'm also going to talk about how they're effectively the knob that Blizzard has access to that will let them, adjust it to make it so that no Covenant choice is inherently bad in every situation. That is, at least as long as conduits, which are an item that are used in Soulbinds, are what I hope that they are. I'm also really aware of a recent video that Taliesin did on Soulbinds. I didn't watch it, so God, I hope that there's like no very little overlap. All right. At the moment, Soulbinds aren't testable in the alpha, and the data mining from Wowhead is really limited. You can see how few Soulbinds are actually testable. So I'm going to focus on the Necrolord Covenant and Paladins, because they're supposedly the best class in all of World of Warcraft anyway. So let's take a look at what they have. The Necrolord signature ability is called Fleshcraft. It's a 4-second channeled spell that when it's completed, it creates a bubble for 2 minutes, and it's increased if I use it near powerful corpses. It's okay, it's mildly useful. Paladins are going to get the Vanquisher's Hammer ability from the Necrolords. It's a ranged ability that is a 30-yard range. It has a 30-second cooldown, and it makes their next signature ability automatically fire off a second signature ability based on their spec. And this buff, it lasts for 15 seconds. So you throw the hammer, you have 15 seconds to do something cool. So, for example, if I was a Retribution Paladin, I would use Vanquisher's Hammer. I would use it on the primary target, and then in my next Templar's Verdict, I'd hit the dude, and it would trigger Divine Storm, which will do some extra damage to nearby targets. Cool. But for the sake of just argument, let's pretend that for protection, that this ability isn't so great. An automatic Shield of the Righteous isn't going to help me out if I'm going to take massive shadow damage or something like that. But I really like the Necrolords because their armor looks so freaking awesome. So I'm in a situation now where I feel like I made both the right choice and the wrong choice at the same time. That just doesn't feel good because ultimately I'm just going to feel more bad than anything. That's where Soulbinds come in. So let's take a look at what Soulbinds offer for the Necrolord Club. So I can choose between 3 Soulbinds, Bonesmith Hermir, Emeni, and Plague Deviser Marileth. Lovely people. So Soulbinds have these descending trees full of choices and empty slots, these conduit slots, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Now, I want to show you Emeni's tree because it makes the perfect example of how our Covenant abilities can be more than what they seem. So at the top is this trait right here. Emeni's Magnificent Skin, which makes it so that when I use my Vanquisher's Hammer or, my skill, whatever, I gain a buff that stacks up to 4 times. And then when I use Fleshcraft, which again is a 4-second channel, it consumes up to those 4 stacks to increase my maximum health by up to 20% for 2 minutes. Now let's take a look at this now, because as a tank, this is potentially freaking amazing. Let me click back here. So Vanquisher's Hammer, it has a 30-second cooldown. So if I use it 4 times, that's going to take about 2 minutes to get all those Vanquisher's Hammers out. And then when I go to Fleshcraft, this also has a 2-minute cooldown. So with some smart play, I can always have 20% additional life. So, And that's crazy. Like I haven't even looked at the rest of the tree, but I have already told myself that yeah, this is a great idea for tanking, and this is a great soulbind for tanking, and for a certain extent like PvP or whatnot. But so let's look at what else we have. So, cartilaginous legs. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. It gives me a bubble based on how much falling damage that I take, and then we'll talk about these covenants a little bit later. What else is good? When I'm reduced below 20% health, I fear enemies for 3 seconds. And then I make some choices here. I go to the bottom, and then I get this rune scribed bone, which enhances all of the choices that I make, no matter which choice I happen to make here. So, Ameni's magnificent skin. It also does shadow damage based on how many stacks that I had built up. So all of a sudden, Vanquisher's hammer is a good deal bit better than I had initially thought. Now, unfortunately, as for the other soul binds, let me click over. As for the other soul binds, they don't offer that sort of same bonus or synergy with my Vanquisher's Hammer. As a player, well, and I should point out that it at least does interact with my signature ability with Fleshcraft. So it does some cool things here and there. Now, as a player, this communicates to me that when I'm in a situation where my Covenant ability might not be ideal, maybe one or more of these soul binds that have certain traits in them can have certain qualities in there that make up for that weakness. So it was like what Ian was talking about. It's all about shoring up weaknesses while other soul binds can enhance their strengths because, in other situations, my signature ability may be okay. Unfortunately, though, this doesn't seem to be the case in all this data mined information, as there aren't any other built-in traits that enhance our Covenant abilities. Like I said, it works with Fleshcraft, and for the Night Fae, it works with Soul Shape here. That's actually a pretty prominent thing between some of these other things, like Field of Blossoms. When Soul Shape ends, something cool happens. Which brings me to, I hope I'm clicking here, to conduits. So conduits have an opportunity to, like I said, be that knob that I mentioned earlier, a way for we as players to customize procs and stats and utility, and maybe our Covenant abilities too. There might be conduits that alter our abilities to behave slightly differently in such a way that we can make each soul bind ideal for like let's go back to the Necrolords. We can make a soul bind that's ideal for raid tanking, while another one is ideal for Mythic Plus tanking or flag carrying, because we have so many different kinds of choices that we can, so many slots that we can fill, and several choices that we can make in here that we can customize these things. These soul binds aren't necessarily tank, healer, DPS. I should point out here, though, that going back to the Necrolords, if you go through these, like we can count three survivability conduits here, and you can pick all these up if you go down the tree. Whereas if you go down to a many, you can see that there are three throughput conduits here, and then for a play divisor, you will see three utilities. So there are differences here. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the survivability or the tank one, this is the throughput one, and this is the utility or PvP one. It's just that there are inconsistencies. The way I see this, what Ian and the team are trying to do is, they're trying to create some sort of permanence of choice while still providing options to ensure that the choices aren't just forever bad, right? We still have a ways to go before the alpha and the beta run their course, but there is kind of a snag here when it comes to this whole testing phase, because soulbinds are an end game system. So it's going to be a while before we really start getting to these, before we start getting our hands on them and start theory crafting. Of course, on the bright side, conduits are items. Like you can see here, there are items that can be replaced and upgraded and touched up and whatever. So we don't actually know what the deal is with all of these, but these are things that can be easily changed and reiterated over time, because there's no doubt that despite the customization that we can get from these soul binds, we're going to have people that are going to sim the best builds. There are too few data mine conduits to make a fair assessment, but for example, this one right here, this ethereal shape, this is a conduit that alters soul shape, and it's a very much, it looks like a really powerful survivability conduit. The challenge that Blizzard has is to make sure that for whatever weaknesses that your favorite Covenant abilities might be, Soulbinds and Conduits are going to help flatten that divide, either with effective soulbind traits that's alter abilities, or just make up for whatever you're lacking, or conduits that's alter abilities, so that and with conduits we can slot these pretty much wherever we want. For now, at least. I know that this was kind of hastily put together, but that's going to be it for now. Now that I have a better look at Soulbinds and Conduits, I can at least speak to it a little bit, but I'm really excited to see more complete trees and conduits that I'd love to give feedback on. I'm going to provide links to these websites below so that you can look for yourself, but let's see what you folks at home and elsewhere think about all this. I encourage you, please leave a comment below. Don't forget to like the video if this was useful, and don't forget to subscribe for more Shadowlands coverage and all things Warcraft. We'll see you later. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.